Welcome to another episode of the MemcycoFM show. Today we're diving deep into a challenge that's just constantly evolving, account takeover, or ATO. It's a threat that can feel, well, pretty overwhelming, right? But what if there was a way to stop it before it even started, to really get ahead of the curve?
That's exactly what we're going to unpack today. Our sources are showing this really fascinating and I'd say critical shift in thinking in cybersecurity. It's about moving beyond just, reactive detection towards truly preemptive protection. We've pulled insights from quite a range of advanced security strategies, looking particularly at some innovative approaches to, say, digital impersonation and fraud.
Okay, so our mission here is to explore how security teams can expose these scammers much, much earlier, like even before a password is ever typed in anywhere. It's about anticipating the attack, not just reacting when the alarm bells ring. And we'll show you why this proactive shift isn't just like a nice-to-have advantage. It's fast becoming a critical necessity in today's digital landscape.
Okay, let's really dig into this then. We often think of account takeover as, simply a bad login. Maybe an unauthorized access attempt.
Mm-hmm.
But our sources make it super clear that ATO attacks are actually part of a much bigger picture, a multi-stage scam lifecycle.
That's right.
Can you maybe elaborate on what that means for how current systems usually fall short?
Absolutely. Think of it like this. Legacy security systems, they're valuable, sure, but they tend to react very late in this whole cycle. They often work with pretty limited visibility. They're usually only flagging suspicious activity after someone tries to log in.
Which means, you often have zero insight into the actual attacker or the victim's journey before that point, or even the full scope of the attack before it hits your login page. It's a bit like trying to stop a flood by bailing water out of your basement after it's already gushing in.
Instead of fixing the leak upstream.
Exactly. Yeah. Instead of shoring up the riverbanks way before the flood hits.
So if it's this whole life cycle, what does that imply about where our prevention efforts should be focused? Where does this preemption idea really kick in?
It fundamentally means that real ATO prevention, effective prevention, needs comprehensive visibility into the entire progression of the scam. And this journey, it typically starts long before your login screen is even a factor. It often begins with phishing campaigns, maybe website impersonation.
Right.
Then it escalates into credential harvesting. That's where attackers trick users into giving up their info. And only then does it finally culminate in that unauthorized access, the thing we traditionally call ATO. So the core insight here, the real aha moment, is that an effective ATO prevention strategy has to start long before a password is ever even typed. That's really the essence of preemption.
Okay, this is where it gets really, really interesting for me. Our sources outline this 5-step model for preemptive ATO detection, and it sounds like it truly flips the script on traditional security. It's not just about patching holes. It sounds more like draining the swamp where the problems breed. Can you walk us through these steps?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. This whole strategic approach, it's designed to empower security teams, to help them move significantly faster than the attackers. It really transforms their posture from just defensive to, truly offensive, proactive. So, step 1. Start account takeover detection right at the phishing stage. Now, most fraud teams today, they rely heavily on external vendors, right, to scan for phishing sites and then get them taken down.
Standard practice, yeah.
Standard practice? But here's the critical catch, the thing many overlook. Takedowns are almost always too late to stop the actual fraud. By the time a site is found and may be taken down, the damage is often done. Victims have already been phished. Their credentials are gone.
Out in the wild.
Exactly. And maybe more importantly, these reactive methods give you almost no insight into who was targeted or how users were tricked or, crucially, where those stolen credentials ended up. Even really essential tools, things like multi-factor authentication or suspicious login checks, they're vital, but they still leave these big gaps in early-stage visibility.
So it's really about getting ahead of that takedown process, almost like predicting where the next phishing attack will even pop up.
Precisely, yeah. There's this innovative approach our sources highlight, sometimes called things like nano defender technology. The aim is to detect website and content impersonation attempts in real time, often before those fake sites are even fully live or widely spread.
Wow, okay.
Well, imagine maybe a lightweight, resilient piece of code, perhaps running client-side, like a snippet or extension. It monitors for content being copied, brand impersonation, maybe using sophisticated visual analysis to spot these digital lookalikes. This gives security teams just unprecedented visibility into that phishing funnel before the attackers even really launch their campaign properly.
That's a game changer.
It really is. And when you combine that with advanced device fingerprinting, creating a unique super granular profile of each device a user interacts with, it allows you to identify individual scam victims and the characteristics of the attack devices, all in real time.
So you know who's affected and what the attacker is using.
Exactly. This isn't just about blocking a single site anymore. It's about understanding the entire attack chain right from the start, giving you the power to preemptively block or intervene. And the impact is huge. Operational costs go down because the reactive caseload shrinks. Reputation, revenue, customer retention, they all benefit. Okay, so that leads to step 2. Detect scam interactions before the login. Traditional ATO tools, they usually flag suspicious logins based on pretty generic stuff. Unusual IP addresses, maybe sudden geolocation shifts, some basic behavioral anomalies.
The usual suspects.
The usual suspects. But the problem is, attackers are incredibly smart. They've learned how to look legitimate. For instance, what if a compromised user's account is accessed from a device in the same country? Or maybe one that mimics familiar behavior using stolen session cookies.
Ah, yeah.
Many legacy systems will just assume it's safe, even if it's clearly an ATO attempt. They only look for the really obvious red flags.
So the attackers can make their activity look totally clean, even when they're absolutely not legit. That feels like a massive blind spot.
It is, exactly.
Yeah.
And this is where a more sophisticated concept comes in, sometimes called device DNA or deep device fingerprinting. It becomes absolutely crucial. Instead of just looking at IPs, this approach builds this really robust, multi-dimensional behavioral profile of trusted devices linked to specific users.
How deep does that go?
Oh, it uses hundreds of data points, everything from browser details, operating system quirks, installed fonts, plugins, network setups, even subtle things like typing speed or how the mouse moves. This rich device DNA lets systems detect with really high fidelity when an unknown or a mimicking device suddenly appears trying to use credentials. So even if the phished credentials themselves are correct, if the device trying to log in doesn't match the established DNA of the legitimate user's trusted devices, bang, activity flagged immediately. This enriches your fraud systems with these high-fidelity signals. It lets teams act way faster and with much more precision, preventing successful logins even when the username and password are correct. Which brings us to step 3. Track attacker devices and patterns. Most organizations are still kind of playing whack-a-mole. An attack happens, they deal with it, then they move on. There's often no continuity in the intelligence gathered.
Right. So instead of just reacting to each login attempt by itself, we should be thinking about the bigger picture, the whole campaign. Why wait for a login attempt if you can see the attack infrastructure being built?
That's exactly the profound shift in mindset this step represents. It's all about anticipating the next move. Next-gen solutions, they leverage this combination of real-time phishing infrastructure mapping, understanding the attacker's tools, their servers, their methods, combined with advanced device behavior profiling and AI-powered risk signals. This allows security teams to actually anticipate ATO attempts before the credentials are ever even used.
That sounds predictive.
It is predictive. The insight here is that by spotting shared attack patterns across different phishing campaigns and mapping the unique fingerprints of attacker devices, you can detect when a user is actively being targeted or scammed. You can link that specific event to broader campaign patterns, and you can enable really early intervention. Often this happens before the fraud team even knows a specific attack is underway against one of their users. Like you said, it's not just detection anymore, it's prediction. And that fundamentally changes the game for security operations. It allows for proactive defense, not just constant reactive cleanup. Okay, then step 4. Predict and intercept ATO attempts. In most places, you only find out a user got phished and their credentials were stolen after their account is already compromised or misused.
Yeah, the damage is done.
Damage done. And at that point, recovery becomes this expensive, slow, and often reputation-damaging ordeal. It's that classic after-the-fact problem.
That's such a common story in security, isn't it? The cost of fixing things often just skyrockets compared to preventing it. So how does this step really let you intercept before that damage happens?
Precisely. The key insight here is identifying those fake site visitors in real time. Just imagine a scenario. A user, totally unaware, clicks a phishing link. They land on this perfectly crafted fake login page.
Looks legit.
Looks totally legit. With this preemptive step, your security system could, right at that moment, identify that specific user as at risk. Why? Because they're interacting with a known impersonation site, maybe linked via that nano defender tech we mentioned, or similar detection methods.
Okay.
This real-time ID means you can isolate those at-risk users, you can protect their accounts internally, maybe flag them, you could even apply extra verification steps before the credentials are ever misused, or maybe even before they type them into the fake site.
Like triggering an MFA prompt.
Exactly. Trigger an immediate out-of-band multi-factor authentication request directly to their legitimate app. Or send a proactive warning message. It's how you turn what could have been a major ATO incident into basically a non-event, preventing the breach entirely rather than just trying to contain the fallout. And finally, step 5. Feed all these findings into your existing fraud models. Look, even if a security team has a really robust fraud detection stack already, many of these systems operate with limited upstream data. They don't see the beginning of the story. You might catch a fraudulent transaction, sure, but you often don't know its true origin. You don't know who else was targeted by that same campaign or what specific attacker infrastructure was involved.
It's like having a great defensive line, but no scouts telling you the other team's plays.
That's a great analogy. So the intelligence isn't complete, meaning future attacks might just exploit the same weaknesses because the initial root cause wasn't fully understood or, crucially, shared across the whole security ecosystem.
Makes sense.
Correct. So this final step is all about making your entire security setup smarter. The breakthrough here is feeding this real-time telemetry, including those granular attacker device fingerprints, the precise victim journey data from the moment they were exposed, campaign-level patterns, feeding all that directly into your existing fraud risk models, your CM systems.
Enriching the data they already have.
Massively enriching it. This enriched data allows for dramatically better decision-making. It significantly reduces false positives, which, waste valuable analyst time, and enables much, much faster mitigation. It basically transforms your fraud models from being just reactive rule-based systems into highly intelligent predictive engines that learn from every single attempted attack. It makes your overall security posture exponentially more resilient.
Wow, that's a really comprehensive breakdown. Thank you. We've heard this word preemption a lot throughout this deep dive. Could you maybe help our listener distill the core difference between traditional ATO detection and this concept of ATO preemption? It feels like more than just a subtle difference.
Yeah, that's a really important question to clarify. At its heart, ATO detection typically refers to spotting suspicious activity after login attempts have already started. It's analyzing behavior right at the point of attack.
Yeah.
Basically, once the attacker is already knocking at your digital door.
Okay. Reactive.
ATO preemption, on the other hand, fundamentally shifts that timeline way earlier. It focuses on identifying the phishing scams, identifying the compromised users, spotting the attacker infrastructure before any credential use, often before a fake site is even widely active. Now, solutions that can do both are obviously powerful, but the unique value really lies in prioritizing that preemptive protection. It's all about proactive intervention, not just reactive defense.
So it's really about shifting from that defensive reactive stance, almost like being a goalie just waiting for the shot, to a truly offensive anticipatory one, isn't it? You're playing midfield, maybe intercepting the pass before the shot is even taken.
Absolutely. That's a perfect way to put it. The core idea, the fundamental truth, is that account takeover fraud doesn't just begin with a compromised login. That's the end game. It starts much, much earlier with those insidious roots of phishing, digital impersonation, social engineering campaigns. So if your current tools only kick in after the fact, or if they just can't effectively identify attackers or victims at those crucial earliest stages, well, it's probably time to fundamentally rethink what true ATO prevention means for your organization. The future of security, it really is about stopping these scams, not just before they succeed, but while that digital impersonation at their root is being planned and executed. It's about anticipating, understanding, and intervening proactively, rather than just constantly reacting to the inevitable breach.
What a truly illuminating deep dive, seriously, into such a critical area of digital security, understanding this profound shift from reactive to preemptive protection, and really seeing how it identifies threats right from their inception. It genuinely changes how we need to think about safeguarding our digital lives and our organizations.
Indeed. And knowledge is always most valuable when it's understood and actually applied. This proactive approach offers a powerful, really paradigm-shifting way to stay ahead of these increasingly sophisticated and, frankly, persistent threats. It's about moving from that state of constant catch-up to one of strategic foresight.
Definitely. So if these preemptive strategies have sparked your curiosity, listeners, and maybe you're wondering how this kind of approach could strengthen your own security posture, you might find it really insightful to explore solutions from some of the innovators in this space. Perhaps even looking into a company like Memcyco to see how their specific approach helps integrate these kinds of advanced capabilities into real-world security operations. It could be a great way to see these powerful concepts in action and maybe discover how proactive protection can help secure your users and prevent fraud before any real damage occurs. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Until next time, keep digging into the depths of knowledge.